of course, you need the help from Chinese lawyer. So I did not practice law, but I also can make some recommendation for you to find a good lawyer or best lawyer. And the last is also the same as I mentioned in the morning. I just gave you the guidelines for the establishment of a company or a branch or even the representative office in China. Okay? Here, company laws, I use the title company laws in China. I use the plural form, laws. But it's a broad sense. I explained a bit later on. Okay, in this presentation, I focus on 5 points. The first one is to know the company laws in China. So here, company laws. It's not a single law. It's a whole set of laws concerning the establishment of the company in China. Of course, later on I list some of the company laws. And the second is, what kind of company do you want to establish in China? So there are quite a number of laws to regulate all kinds of companies, for some manufacturing companies, service companies, banking companies, as well. And third is the how to establish a company wholly owned by yourself. There is a special law concerning this kind of companies you want to establish. You must follow the law. And the fourth is how to establish a joint venture company. It's also a special law concerning the joint venture company you want to establish in China. Of course, the final is the how to establish a financial company. Of course, financial company are the companies in the service company. As Dr. Yang mentioned, the logistics company is also a service company. Okay, now first, to know the company laws in China. So I list altogether 10 laws, which is composed of the company laws in China, but not all of them. So in China, there's a law, and the lower level is the regulation, law made by the Congress, People's Congress. The regulation made by the, generally speaking, central government. The central government can make the law itself, but does not call the law, but call the regulation. So we divide these company laws 4 kinds. The first, as I call it, the general company law. That is the first one, company law of the People's Republic of China. It is a general company law. Whatever you want to, the companies, whether a manufacturer or service, you must follow this company law originally. And the third types concerning the foreign investment laws. So I list 3 of them. One is law of the PIC on Chinese foreign equity joint venture, or simply called the equity joint venture. The second is law of the PIC on Chinese foreign contract joint venture. we simply call contract joint venture. And the third is law of the PIC on foreign capital enterprise that's wholly owned by foreigners. Of course, here is the regulation of the PIC on the administration of registration of companies. Whatever your company you want to instruct in China, you must do the procedure. You have to make the registration in the administration. Okay? And the third type is the, I did not mention in my PPT. That is the, according to the general company law in China, there's a state company law. Actually, we call it the state enterprise law. I did not mention here. This is third. And the fourth is the, as I mentioned, the special company law. Here I mentioned only three. That is financial company. If you want to establish a financial company in China, you must follow these three at least. So company and bank law of the PIC, insurance law of the PIC, security law of the PIC. So of course, there is measures on the administration of foreign capital financial institutions representative office in China. So first, you should know, if you make your decision, what kind of company you want to establish in China. You should know the China company law first. Okay? The second is, what kind of company do you want to establish? So according to the general company law in PIC, they divide two kinds of companies. One is we call the limited liability companies. And the other is joint stock companies limited. There are only two kinds of companies. Okay. The second is what kind of companies in establishment in China? Is a manufacturing company or the financial company or logistics company? You should make a decision. So different company you want to establish in China applies to the different laws in China, different company laws in China. Of course, there is document. It's not law, but a document. This document is a category of the guideline of foreign invest industries, which is amended in 2011. And China's commitments in the gates of the WTO. So in the category of guidance of foreign invest industries, China divides the company, the industries or sectors, three levels, one or three kinds. Number one is these industry or sectors are not allowed by the foreign investment. That is prohibited. You are foreigners. You cannot make any investment in this industry or sectors. And the second, there's a restricted. That means you are foreigners. You may make investment. Then there are much more restricted requirement you should meet with. Maybe the whole process, you should supply all kinds of documents which is needed by the law or by the regulation. And fourth, there is what we call the encouraged. These industries or sectors that Chinese government encourage all foreign investment to make investment in these industry or sectors. So there are three. So these, usually we adopt these or make some amendment 1 or 2 years. So before you make the decision to establish a company, you should know these guidelines. And the joint venture company or a company wholly owned by yourself. So joint venture company, you must find a Chinese partner to be a co-investor to make investment, to establish a company, and so on. And a company wholly owned by yourself, that is, you do need find any partners or Chinese partners. You do yourself, that you make your self-investment. And a company or branch office or even representative office, they are different. So a company, generally speaking, is a legal person. He make here responsibilities, here is credit, and so on. Branch offices usually is not a legal person. Maybe he make more connections with the holding companies, for example, in Korea. And representative office, the difference between the representative office with the company and the branch office, that is, company branch office can do business directly. The representative office is just liaison office. You cannot do the business directly. Of course, you may make some connections. You can find partners, find your clients, but you cannot make the business with the local people. If you want to make a contract, the representative office has no right to make a contract with a company in China, with other enterprise in China. You have to use your holding company, make a contract with the company in China. So what kind of companies are these? Some of points before you make you want to establish a company in China. Okay, number 3 is how to establish a company wholly owned by yourself. So there is a particular law which is concerning with the foreign invest companies in China. So there are 4 points that I want to mention. First, the law. So first is the company law of the PIC. As I mentioned, is the general company law of a PIC. So this is a general. The particular law is law of the PIC on foreign capital enterprises, capital enterprise. So what's the relations with these two laws? So the general principles in the company law, you must follow up. As I mentioned, there are two kinds of companies, limited or holding companies. And if there's no mention in the general company law, then you must follow the particular law, the law of PIC on foreign capital enterprises. Of course, here is this law regulate the manufacturing, generally speaking, manufacturing companies in China. If you want to establish a service company, there is some international obligations China made when China joined the WTO. As Dr. Yang mentioned, in logistics, the company in China. These are also the regulations concerning the foreign investment in China. Okay, so the law, if you want to establish a company wholly owned by yourself, you must know these laws. And what the advantages or disadvantages if you want to establish a company wholly owned by yourself. So at least advantages there are two. One is make decisions by yourself, because yourself contributed to the capital and make the decision. So you can, if the company is established, you can run the company yourself. You can make any decision of the company, such as the output, the price of the product, and so on. So you can have the final say concerning any decision concerning this company. Of course, the second is wholly controlled. No one can interference the internal affairs of your company. Of course, there are some disadvantages. The first one is more risk. So generally speaking, if a foreigner, they do not know China quite well. So as Mr. Moore said yesterday, there are quite a number of problems, mistakes, or regret, or misunderstanding. So this is one. The second is less familiar with the investment environment. So establish a company not only just only the business, but connection with other elements. Of course, on the whole, you should, for example, at present, no one in the world wants to make investment in Syria because there's a war in Syria. So political stability is the first things when the investor want to make their investment. So, of course, the legal issues. So you're quite not familiar with all the legal and the legal issues when establishment the company. So these invest environment or invest climate, you should know. Therefore, is prohibited by law. Or, for example, you cannot make any investments to the enterprise which is related to the military industry. Or right now, you cannot make any investment monopoly by the state companies, so on, so on. So there are some advantages or disadvantages if you want to establish a company wholly owned by yourself. Okay, suppose you made your decision. You want to establish a company wholly owned by yourself. Then there are some basic requirements you should follow. Number one is to help the development of China's national economy. So China, of course, will think of his own interests when they want the investment from abroad. So the aim of your establishment, the company in China, you must think to cope with the aims of the Chinese government. If you establish a company which is to harm to the development of China economy, the government will not make any approval to this kind of establishment. The second is encourage the establishment of foreign capital enterprise that are export-oriented or technically advanced. These are two main goals when China make this kind of law. I mean, the wholly owned by foreign enterprise. So you know China is number one exporter country. But the total exportation, about 6%, the big number, 60% of exportation come from the joint ventures, not the state enterprises. So the export-oriented company that Chinese government encourage the foreign make their investment. And the technologically advanced. So China is a developing country. Of course, he wants to get some technology, advanced technology, in order to promote, in order to develop the China's economy. So if your company, which you want established, meet the requirements, maybe the Chinese government make the approval easily or quickly. Of course, the enterprise with foreign capital should abide by Chinese law and regulations and may not engage in any activities detrimental to the Chinese public interests. I think this kind of requirements is a general requirement for all the countries who want to absorb the foreign investment. We can fully understand this kind of requirement. And how to establish a company wholly owned by yourself, the procedures. So first, you make the application. Without application without any activities for the establishment of the foreign companies in China. So usually you should written application to the authorities. Generally speaking, is commercial bureau, commercial division in the government. Of course, together with your corporations, there are quite a number of documents should also supply. Then the authorities receive your application together with all the documents. They make the examination. And after the examination, maybe they make the decision. Or positively say they approve your application. So there is a time frame, or time limit for the government make their decision. So originally at the beginning of the opening to all sites in 1980s, there's no such time limitations. So many foreigners want to establish a company in China. They spend a lot of time, So we revised and put a strict time limit within 90 days or 3 months. So within 3 months after receiving your application, the government concerned make their decision, or approval or disapproval. Then if you get the license or get the approval from the government department, you should make a registration to the administration for the industry and commerce. So in order to obtain a business license, only you obtain a business license from the administration, then you can do your business. So these the main steps to establish a wholly owned company by yourself. That's it. So next is how to establish a joint venture company. Also, these 3 points I want to make. First, there is law, and second is the advantage or disadvantage. Of course, the basic requirement and the procedures. So there are a number of laws concerning the establishment of a foreign company in China. Of course, the first one is also the General Company Law of the PIC. So there are 2 special laws, which is the joint venture law. The first one is the law of the PIC on Chinese foreign equity joint venture. And the other is not equity joint venture, but contract joint venture. So we make a comparison with these 2 special laws. On the whole, there are some same requirement. And of course, there are some distinguished between these laws. So equity joint venture, legally speaking, is what? It must be a legal person in China. A contract joint venture may be a legal person, maybe not. Maybe not. Or for example, in the equity joint venture, you must the structure of the company, there must a board of directors. There must be board of directors. But the contracted joint venture, of course, you have the board of directors. It's yes. If I don't want to, the board of directors, I just the committee. It's also allowed. So two parties, Chinese party, foreign party, they make a joint committee. It's also allowed. Of course, China's commitment in the gates of the WTO. So if you want to establish a joint venture company of services, you must follow some commitments in the WTO that China has already made. So of course, there are some advantages or disadvantages for the joint venture. So for the advantages, because you have a Chinese partner in your company, so you're quite familiar with the investment environment in China. Generally speaking, the Chinese party knows China's situation much familiar this way. So it will help you to make the decisions when you operate your company. The second is fast process. Because the Chinese know the more details, more some basic requirement, more informations, you will shorten the time of application. So make the fast, of course, share the risk. Because both parties will share the different risk according your contract, a joint venture contract. So if the company is wholly owned by yourself, you should the whole risk will bear by yourself. Of course, sometimes disadvantages. Number one is the more time needed. Because not the foreigners can decide everything. If you make any decision concerning the joint ventures, you must acquire some opinions from the Chinese side. If that's okay, that's okay. If the different opinions, you should make some negotiations and make some talks and come to the common understanding on certain issues. So more time sometimes are needed. And more disputes possible. So there's partners, maybe they have different interests sometimes. So different interests may arouse disputes. So more disputes are possible. And if you want to establish a joint venture, there are some basic requirements. basic requirements. The first one, the joint venture agreement. This is number one. You have to, with your Chinese partners, to reach agreement. We call it joint venture agreement. And contract. And articles of association. So all these documents are must before you want to establish a joint venture. So of course, there is also written application, together with these documents. So the government concerned receive these documents together with the application. They should spend some time to make examination. And at last, they will make the decision whether approval or disapproval. And a joint venture, the second is the joint venture should take the form of a limited liability company. As I said a moment ago, in the general company law, there's only two kinds, but here, only one. But of course, recently we make a reform. If you want to make a public company, there is a special requirement. And the third, the proportion of the foreign joint ventures investment in the joint venture should be in general not less than 25% of its registered capital. For example, total investment is 1 billion, 1 million. So 250 how much? 250 million thousand dollars you must contribute to the company, the joint venture company. Of course, there's a high limitation, only the lowest limitation. If you want to contribute to 0.8 million US dollars, okay. Only 20% for the Chinese side, 80% for the foreigners is okay. And the equity joint venture should have a board of directors, as I mentioned just now. If you want to establish an equity joint venture, there must be a board of directors. If you want to establish a cooperative joint ventures, there's not the must. You may have, you may not. So procedures almost the same as we mentioned in the company you want to establish wholly owned by yourself. Of course, first, you make the written application first. Then examination and approval by the government concerned. Then what? Within 90 days, the same days. And of course, the last, you have to the administrative department for industry and commerce for registration and get the business license. Okay.
Well, Professor Gao, we are a little bit losing the time.
Okay.
And
okay. Sorry.
Yes. Because most of the companies that maybe creation companies will open in China will be the joint venture or fully owned institutions, and I'm just seeing that you have very good information on the financial companies and commercial banks, insurance companies. Unfortunately, creation insurance companies and banks are being sold to other people, so I'm not sure if if we will open insurance companies or banks in China. We cannot open them in Croatia.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So, do you maybe have any questions for Professor Gao for his very warm and very qualitative information on establishing the companies in China? Mr. in the back has a question. Or
One question. In America, it takes about 15 minutes to open the company, and only what you need is social security number and your address. Is China going to move in that direction to speed up the process, because 90 days requirement for the government to respond and probably another month to get additional documents? That's like 4 months waiting, and business is actually at standstill, and we are losing the market opportunity in that time. Is there any possibility that China government is going to move forward and shorten this type of times?
Of course, 9 days at most. At most. If you find a partner from China, maybe I use the terms used, Professor Yan said yesterday, 关系. You found, try every means to ask them to go quicker procedures. It's possible, I think.
I'm sorry, asking maybe off topic. Are there any advantages, tax advantages, or differences between the 4 types of companies or 6 you mentioned? Meaning, are the foreigners taxed differently, or are they taxed like the Chinese citizens? Just briefly, I know that I'm taking time right now.
If we are 5 years ago, there is a different tax treatment with the foreign investment companies and domestic companies. But right now, maybe from 2010, maybe, I'm not sure. We changed our tax law concerning the foreign investment. And now, there is almost the same with the other companies, domestic companies. Only 25% of the income tax were applied, whether you are joint venture company or state company or the private company. Because there is a case raised by the United States in the WTO. They found you did not give the foreign investment companies the national treatment. So we have to change our law. Okay.
Any other questions? Then I'll have a small question. Mr. Blackburn yesterday mentioned that sometimes it's maybe better to open a company in Hong Kong and then use this as a mother company to open a company in People's Republic of China. Would you suggest this model? Do you think this model is good sometimes? Does it make it easier for a company to be established if the mother company is in Hong Kong or Macau and not in some other countries in the world? Because of the special situation of Hong Kong and Macau, of course.
In my opinion, I don't think it is necessary now to establish a mother company in Hong Kong. Then you go to the mainland to establish a company or make a joint venture. Since the opening to outside, I was in Hong Kong for more than 1.5 years. And at that time, the Hong Kongese said there's so rich in Hong Kong that depends the mainland, So from 1997, you may find the importance in Hong Kong is not so big to the mainland China. The reason why they want to establish the mother company, then go into the mainland China, I think is reduce the risk. Reduce the risk. This is our main reason. Okay.
Okay, any more questions for Professor Gao? Not at the moment, so. Okay, I want to thank you for your presentation and all the questions, and thank you very much.